Sonny Dykes adds two more players to the 2025 class, another pass rusher, another offensive lineman. Momentum continuing to build for TCU on the recruiting trail. Also, is Brett Yormark trying to sell off the Big 12 name? I'll explain here on Locked on Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day.
You are Locked on Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel because we are here on YouTube as well, whether you're watching or listening. I appreciate you joining the show. It's been a heavy recruiting week. We didn't really plan for that, but TCU keeps landing players for the 2025 class, which is awesome and exciting. And so I'll keep talking about those guys. With the two additions that they had on Wednesday, they currently sit at 14th overall in the nation and number one in the new Big 12 for 2025. The two players that they added, Jared Martin, an edge rusher out of California, El Centro, California to be exact, and then Jackson Jones, an offensive tackle from Franklinton, Louisiana, plays at Pine High School. We'll start with Jared Martin, and I've been sharing this meme on social media lately. When the Frogs land a commit, if you are watching it on YouTube, you can see it here. How Sonny got his groove back. It's just a picture of Sonny Dykes with the words "How Sonny got his groove back," because I do feel like I wish it didn't have to happen this way. But going 5-7 last year was a big wake-up call in a lot of ways. He shared in a couple of different interviews this offseason that the coaching staff felt like they didn't really handle the schedule right after the national championship debacle. They gave the guys some time off, gave the coaches some time off. They had a coordinator change with Kendall Browse coming over after Garrett Riley left for Clemson. And so they were sort of behind the eight ball from the jump at the beginning of last season. Leadership wasn't fully developed, at least from a player standpoint last year. They didn't have those upperclassmen that were leading the charge and just, whether it was by example or vocally, kept the guys focused on the task at hand. And then that led to some losses. Recruiting was sort of middle of the road for 2024. But new energy has been infused into this program. I think part of that is Andy Avalos coming over as defensive coordinator. The other factor here is just sort of, hey, you got knocked on your butt last season, and now you got to pick the pieces back up, and hopefully there's more motivation than ever to get back to where you were in 2022. So Jared Martin, an edge rusher out of California, lives in El Centro, and he is a class of 2025 guy, 6'3", 210 pounds. And if you've been following the types of players they have recruited at outside linebacker, this is another player that fits the bill. According to 247 Sports, Jared is a 3-star prospect. His composite ranking, which factors in all the different recruiting rankings that are out there. He's a 4-star player, had a really impressive offer list, Arizona State, California, amongst others. West Coast kid, Andy Avalos, Ken Wilson, able to get him in the fold. And when you watch his tape, the athleticism just jumps off the page. I mean, he is lined up as a stand-up edge rusher, and I would even hesitate to call it a 9 technique, which is the outside shoulder of the tackle. I mean, he is like off the line of scrimmage and very far outside the tackle that he's matched up against one-on-one. And the speed to get to the quarterback, the athleticism to be able to get to the QB is on full display. Really quick first step, just beating these offensive linemen in the punch. Now, there were also times where he gets engaged with the O-lineman and is able to bull rush his way back to the quarterback, shed that blocker, and find a way to make a negative play as well. So I wouldn't say like the the pass rush repertoire and the bag is fully developed yet, but I think he's got a good foundation for building something like that. And the most exciting thing about this player, as has been the case with a lot of these similar guys they've recruited so far, is just the speed and athleticism that allows him to wreak havoc because these O-linemen just can't keep up with him from a footwork perspective. Chad Woodfork from Summer Creek and Humble, same type of player, another like stand-up edge rusher. Now you have Jared Martin in the mix. John Schobel, who's a middle linebacker right now, but could potentially move into that edge rusher role. Anthony Williams from Shadow Creek and Pearland. Keelan Abrams from DeSoto. They just have a number of guys who fit this mold for that new stud linebacker position. And it makes sense because you don't really have a lot of players that fit that bill on campus right now. So you have to invest heavily in it. But I really like what the staff is doing on the defensive side of the ball in general, but especially with these outside linebackers, finding athletic guys who can get after the QB and who can make plays behind the line of scrimmage. And again, another player, when you watch the tape, I mean, if you're going to try to run slow developing plays against him specifically, but this defense in general, once it all comes together, good luck. I had somebody ask me the other day, because there is a lot of momentum around the defense right now, and I think just excitement about what they can do. Already starting to ask the question, like, how long can they keep Andy Avalos? And it's really impossible to say at this point. I mean, the first thing I'll say is he still needs to put a good product on the field. Now, that's not me doubting him. It's just the fact of the matter, like, if he's going to make the jump, he was a head coach at Boise State, ends up coming here to be the DC. If he's going to make that jump again, then it's not just about recruiting. It's also about putting a really good product on the field, which I'm hopeful that he can do that. But, yeah, I'm not sure what his mindset is. I mean, most of these guys, like, that's where they want to be. They want to be in that head coaching role. And even if the first go-around it didn't go exactly as planned, that's still the ultimate goal and the ultimate end game. But I'm hopeful that he can be here for a few seasons. And the main reason I'm envisioning that and hoping for that is because I do think it's going to take time to build and shape this unit to be what you want it to be. I like the moves they've made. I like the talent they brought in. There's still obviously going to be a learning curve. And so I don't feel like we're going to see the best version of the Andy Avalos defense this year. I think they're going to be improved and good because they can't really be worse than last season. But I still believe in with the portal and with, some of the freshmen they'll have coming in, it's going to be a process getting to a level of play that they want to be at. So Jared Martin added to the mix, another offensive lineman as well, Jackson Jones from Franklinton, Louisiana, 6'7", 290. I said this the other day, whether it's Logan Schramm or now Jackson Jones, TCU's doing a good job of finding O-linemen that even if they're projects from maybe an ability standpoint, physically they have good frames. Witten Van Hoy, also, similar situation, not a lot of extra bad weight, good lean body type that should be ready to get in the strength and conditioning program and immediately and hit the ground running and building towards what they want. So Jackson Jones, 3-star recruit out of Louisiana, offer list of Baylor, Louisiana College, Nicholls State, Liberty. So not necessarily blue bloods, but pretty salty offer list for the most part. Duke, Houston, K-State. And one thing they know about in Manhattan, Kansas is offensive line play. I love the priority that this staff has taken with high school recruiting at that O-line spot. And I think Jackson Jones is another player who fits in really well with what they're trying to build here, as they've had to do a lot of it through the transfer portal over the last few seasons. But ultimately, you want an offensive line that's going to be cohesive, that's going to grow and develop together, and get to a place where, they're all functioning on the same page and getting the job done. Jared Martin from California, Jackson Jones from Louisiana, two more out-of-state prospects, which is fascinating because TCU is always going to be Texas heavy with their recruiting classes, but I think it is good that they're branching out a little bit more, and now even going to the West Coast with Jared Martin in the fold. When we come back, Brett Yormark making some moves again. What's the latest with the Big 12? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. There are a few things that are more discouraging than when your car breaks down. You have to keep your ride alive. I mean, most of you that are listening and watching this feel like you probably live in Texas or a nearby state where public transportation not always super available. You need a vehicle to get around. eBay Motors can help you maintain your vehicle's peak performance. Whatever you need, they have millions of parts for your MVP, and they have the eBay Guaranteed Fit program where you can type in the make and model of your car, then find the part that you're interested in, put that part in the shopping cart, and they will immediately tell you, yes, this will work, or no, this is not going to work. You need to find another part for your vehicle. Even for somebody who doesn't understand and do well with cars, as much as I would love to understand it better, it's not my bag. eBay Motors makes it easy for me. Millions of parts for your MVP, whether you're trying to maintain your car's performance or level it up by adding some cool accessories. eBay Motors has got you covered. Millions of parts for your MVP. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Brett Yormark doing some more moving and shaking. So I saw this from Dennis Dodd today, and then Ross Dellinger, Pete Thamel, others have had some good reporting on it. I actually talked about it with Paul Catalina on 365 Sports this afternoon. But Brett Yormark, there's two kind of pieces here with the Big 12 and the way they're doing business and the potential future of it. They are opening up their naming rights for sale. So it's still going to be the Big 12. They're not changing to the Big 16, at least for now. They're not changing up the number, the branding in that way. But they're going to potentially partner with a business. Right now, Allstate looks like the most likely. They've actually had some serious talks with them. If everything goes down and they get a deal done, it will be the Allstate Big 12 or something like that, right? Not sure what company it's going to be yet, but they're open for business in the regard of they're trying to, find a partner to pay them to slap their name on the naming rights of the league. And I would imagine some fans groan and grumble when they hear that. I totally understand it. I guess the reassurance I would give is it's not actually going to change that much. Now, is it another symbol of what college football is becoming and just the corporate aspect of it? Sure. Yeah, it definitely is. It's a changing world, and it's changing every day. But it's not like if you're hanging out with your friends and they make this change and you say the Big 12, somebody's going to correct you and be like, actually, it's the All-State Big 12, right? It's just more branding opportunities. The Big 12 championship events are all already sponsored by somebody. So this will just be another sponsor that they have to kind of get in the fold. The thing I appreciate about this, and like I said, there's two parts to this. So there's the naming rights discussion. And then also you have private equity possibly getting involved with the Big 12 with NIL moving in the near future to the school directly handling most of it. Presidents and athletic directors have brought up the potential of private equity firms getting involved with college sports, whether that be at the conference level, a greater level than that, we don't know yet. But I believe it's CVC Partners, make sure I get this right. CVC Capital Partners in Luxembourg is interested in potentially partnering with the Big 12 and being a private equity investor in the league. Which Big 12 coach would be the best person to send over for a travel show if we send him to Luxembourg? I feel like Mike Gundy would be a good one. Mike would knock it out of the park if he got to travel to Europe and hang out with some capital investors and talk about Big 12 football. But if you're upset about this, I understand it. I'm excited, though. I mean, I'm not excited about corporate branding. Like, that doesn't make me go, oh, wow, this is awesome. However, I think Brett Yormark, what he does really well, he's a marketer, he's a business guy, right? And I remember hearing him lay out a lot of plans at Big 12 Media Days last year. And I sort of rolled my eyes. Part of that's just because my personality, I'm kind of cynical. But it looked like a new iPhone presentation at times. And they're talking about international games and trying to expand basketball, having a performer at halftime of the Big 12 championship, like all these different and interesting ideas. And I was sort of like, man, this is sleek and it's cool, but it's also kind of strange for college athletics. But the thing I love about Brett Yormark is, as a commissioner, this is just another example. Like, he's trying to close the gap between the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 from a revenue perspective. And I'm not naive. I don't think Brett woke up at 3 a.m. and was like, oh, man, I have this novel idea about allowing corporate entities to pay for our naming rights. I would imagine the Big 10 and SEC are in discussions to do something similar. But this is a man who is willing to try things. He's not afraid to take some risk. Not all the stuff's going to hit. Like the Big 12 Combine, I thought it was a cool idea in a vacuum. I don't really feel like it's done much for the league. I don't know how much it's done for those individual players. Maybe there's a few guys that wouldn't have got eyeballs on them without that. But by and large, pretty quiet and understated development from that event. However, I thought it was a cool outside-the-box idea. I think, again, he's trying to be on the forefront of all the changes and moving and shaking across college sports. And it's a very vast departure from what the league was under Bob Bowlesby. And I used this example before, but there's an episode of The Office where Jim leaves the Scranton branch and goes somewhere else, and he and Michael reunite at the sales conference, and Jim's with his new boss, and they have an inside joke together. And Michael laughs, and they're like, oh, well, it's an inside joke. And Michael says, man, I love inside jokes. I'd love to be a part of one someday. And that was Bob Bowlesby. Bob just didn't have the respect of his peers in the room. I feel like they had a group text with him, and then they had another separate group text where they would talk about what they're actually doing, and Bob wasn't a part of that. And so Brett Yormark understands the way the wind is blowing. He gets that, hey, you have to adapt. You have to be sleek. You have to find ways for extra revenue to close this gap. And he's constantly trying to think of interesting avenues and opportunities that would allow them to continue to grow and develop. And that's the thing that I really admire about his leadership and what he's trying to do. Is it going to work every time? No, probably not. But I think these are, again, small things that you can do that could have big dividends later on. And when you look at what happened to the Pac-12, because their commissioner wasn't looking at these opportunities, and he just sort of thought, well, we've had control for a long time. We're going to continue to be at the forefront of college athletics, and he was wrong. You look at what's happening in the ACC right now. And Jim Phillips, he got locked into a long-term TV deal, and now he's basically got a mutiny on his hands where Florida State and Clemson are actively trying to get out and leave the league. And so Brett Yormark wants to avoid that, and he's done a really good job of reviving the brand of the Big 12. Am I going to be over the moon if it's called the All-State Big 12? No, I wouldn't be. I did see somebody today had a really clever idea. If Southwest Airlines sponsored the league, then you could call it the Southwest Conference and go back to, what was a very nostalgic league for a lot of people for a long time. Bottom line is, Brett Yormark is trying to find creative ways to keep the league at the forefront of college athletics, to keep them relevant in this ever-changing landscape, and to make money, bring in revenue, and close the gap between the Big 12 and the two major conferences and the SEC and the Big 10. So that's exciting. That's worth celebrating. And I don't know how it's going to play out, but the private equity thing is probably going to happen regardless. I don't know if it'll work out with particular company, but that's the way that college sports is moving. And so it's another thing to watch here moving forward. When we come back, some news on the TCU baseball front. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Okay, I guess my ad break stopped there. I'm sorry. I had a glitch in the video or something, and I didn't notice. But we're back here on Locked On Horned Frogs. So TJ Bruce is moving on. TCU will have a new hitting coach next season. TJ Bruce, who spent 2 seasons in Fort Worth, he is a Long Beach State alum, and he is reportedly going to take the Long Beach head coaching job. That's according to Kendall Rogers. That's also been confirmed by Jamie Plunkett, who does a really good job covering the baseball team for Horned Frog Blitz. So, TJ Bruce moving on, and the Frogs will be in the market for a new hitting coach. I don't know why it didn't work, but I think this is a good thing for everybody. The lineup struggled this year. I mean, they really struggled all season long. Last season, there was a lot of struggling going on, and most of it was during the first half of the season. That was kind of explainable. Okay, you have Bill Mosiello, who was very aggressive on the base pass, but preached a really patient approach to the plate. TJ Bruce coming with a new philosophy. Guys are trying to adjust. Guys are trying to, figure out how to function on offense. All these changes could lead to, a slow start. And then they caught fire as the year went on, ended up in Omaha. But this past year, it just never got off the ground. And so Kirk didn't have to, move on and let him go. He got a better opportunity. He's going to leave. I wish him the best. Again, I think TJ Bruce is super knowledgeable about baseball. I think he knows the game. But it didn't feel like the team was really responding both schematically and just kind of like body language, emotions, energy to what he was bringing to the ballpark day in and day out. So I think this is best for everybody involved. As far as who they bring in, I haven't seen a lot of names yet. Bill Mosiello is still the head coach at Ohio State, so I don't know if he would be willing to take a demotion, and I say that in air quotes because, Big Ten baseball is not the cream of the crop, right? So getting back in the Big 12, getting back in Texas, I think all those things could be really appealing, but it's still a hitting coach job and not being the head guy. But Kirk's worked with Bill for a long time, and even though there's not a lot of guys on the team currently who have had him before, I think that transition will be pretty seamless. But that's really the only rumblings I've heard about so far, and I'm sure Jamie Plunkett will have some more good reporting in the coming days. It's been kind of quiet on the transfer portal front, and maybe this was why. Maybe they were just kind of waiting on, hey, we need to see how this plays out. We need to get a new hitting coach, and until you do that, it's going to be tough to get a lot of guys to commit. They did add Cole Kramer, an infielder from Washington State. He's their first transfer commitment of the offseason. Last season, he hit .345 with 15 doubles and 2 home runs. He spent most of the year at third base. He had 68 hits and scored 42 runs with 37 RBIs. Those numbers coming from Jamie Plunkett of Horned Frog Blitz. So slapping the ball around, really good batting average. Wish there was more pop there, but hey, a lot of doubles, some extra base hits, and getting on base. I think that's all positive. Cole Kramer from Washington State will be a Frog, and apparently he'll have a new hitting coach. So monitor that and see where TCU goes next when they make a decision. We'll be back on Monday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day.